Donalds from Florida.
Thank you, Chairman. Governor Walz, when did you first receive notice of potential fraud in Minnesota's social services programs?
Social service programs in general. We knew that there was issues with the CCAP program as early as 2012. And my first days in office, we started taking action.
But as governor, when were you first notified?
Before I took office.
All right, Governor Walz, former Department of Human Services Commissioner Tony Laurie testified that you were aware in early 2019 of fraud in 2 Department of Human Services administered programs. Is this statement accurate?
Not that I recall. I'm not sure what.
That's what they all do. Like whenever you have these hearings, they never admit to anything. Like sometimes I question if this is even necessary, if this is something that they have to do.
He's speaking about.
You don't remember this meeting or this notification?
No, not specifically. I don't.
In March of 2019, your Office of Legal Affairs reported $5 to $6 million in alleged child care assistance program fraud. In April 2019, it was also reported that the Department of Human Services lacked proper integrity controls to control fraud. Were you aware of these reports?
Not specific reports, but because of that, my office, we put forward action.
Is this guy going to answer anything? It doesn't seem like he is going to answer any of the questions. And how are you a governor and not know, especially when it comes to like things that you spend money on? Like the most important part of your job is to kind of follow the money, know where the money goes. And you find that every time these guys come into congressional hearings, they all have the same rehearsed answers. Like, what are you talking about?
Actions to address them starting in 2019.
Is it correct that your administration was aware of the Feeding Our Future fraud as early as of May of 2020 based upon regular discussions about program irregularities?
I believe that's correct with the agency, the Department of Education, and then going back to USDA.
I'm gonna go back. Was your office notified of these fraud allegations?
Yeah.
Not me specifically.
It's being reported. Like when the Somali stuff was going on, it was reported that his office was aware of it. They were even intimidating whistleblowers. So he's been aware of this. What is he talking about?
That they're handled internally in the administration. It happens every day.
Who was notified, Governor Walz?
The agencies do their work, the commissioners, and then if someone in my office was notified, they let me know. As governor, I make, 50 decisions a day. I said I did this job for 12 years. I make more decisions in a day.
Governor Walz.
So someone was maybe notified.
But that's your job. If you can't do the job, why did you run for office? That's your job. Like, I don't care how many decisions you make in a day. Are you just like approving everything, like rubber stamping it, boom, 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 auto pen decision making? Or are you actually going through the documentation and asking the right questions and then making data-driven decisions, or you're just flipping a coin?
Notified, but the agencies are the ones that take the action.
May I ask the next question? We have it under sworn testimony in the Oversight Committee that your former chief of staff was notified directly by these various commissioners about the fraud in Minnesota.
That could be correct.
So are you saying that your chief of staff didn't notify you?
I'm saying I don't recall whether he did at that time or not, but we took action.
Bullshit. All of them are going to behave like this. I mean, what's the point, right? Are you gonna just be honest about it? Who votes for these guys?
Action. So I'm assuming when we put our budgets together, based on that, we put a package together for that legislative session.
Let's talk about budgets, Governor Walz. Feeding Our Future went from $307,000 in 2018 to $199 million in 2021. Are you aware of
2018 to 2021? That's how fast. Within 3 years, they went from sub $400,000 to almost $200 million. Let that sink in. That's crazy work.
Aware of this increase in budgetary costs from Feeding Our Future?
Not specifically, but I know it increased during the pandemic.
The housing stable.
Man, if you're running a state budget and you know that the firm that you paid almost $400,000, which is nothing, goes all the way to almost $200 million, you should look into it.
Housing stabilization services went from $27 million in 2021 to $105 million in 2024.
Oh, they were already making millions, and they still made less than feeding our, whatever they call them, feeding our future. these guys were just approving everything, really. And that's why, like I said, everybody wants to talk about the Somalis, but nobody's talking about these incompetent leaders that made this possible. They made this possible.
24. Are you aware of this increase, Governor Walz?
Not specifically, but I know it increased.
Autism centers went from 24 million in 2019 to 342 million in 2024. Are you aware of that?
Not specifically again, but yes, we know the budget's increased.
Does he know anything? Does he know anything at this point? Oh my goodness.
Integrated community supports went from 4.6 million in 2021 to 170 million in 2024. Are you aware of that?
Again, not specifically on.
It's 2024. This is more recent. These are like 2 years ago.
On the numbers, but it's the budget.
Governor Walz, you have to submit a budget to your legislature every single year, like every governor has to do. If you're not aware of these increases, what was your office
Everyone
doing?
is balanced. My budget is
Nothing.
about 72 billion. It includes 23.
Nothing. Running for office, trying to be vice president, not paying attention. Like, you got one job and you're horrible at it, and you're hoping that you get a promotion. This is one of the things that I've also very much realized throughout my corporate journey. Like, it's the people that always push for promotions tend to be like the most lousy employees.
23 agencies.
Florida's
6
budget's
million
115 billion, sir. But what were you doing if you're seeing program increases like this amid allegations of fraud in your state?
people. Action was being taken on these starting back in 2019. If it's
Can you describe the action that was taken in 2019?
Sure. In the 2019, I'll go to the first things that we did on child care assistance. We lowered the standards on proof of administrative fraud disqualification.
Whoa, you lowered the
increased
standards?
We lowered the standards for proof of administrative fraud. The standards where we had to prove it were so high it was impossible to try and do it. So we lowered what.
So they dropped so that it's easier to detect fraud. I think they could have phrased that better, but anyway, I get what he's trying to say.
What it took to show that fraud was happening.
And what did you do with the results of lowering the standards to prove fraud? What did you do?
Put 79 people in prison and.
But Governor Walz,
Continue
the
to
fraud
prosecute.
continued to increase. It increased.
Yeah, you put these people in prison, but what about 2024 and all these numbers? I mean, if you found however many people already, then that should give you an indication that there's some fraud going on, and you don't just approve anything that comes through. But these things were just going on up until this year or last year, later part of last year. So obviously they were not doing much. I think what they are talking about is federal prosecutions, like the ones that crossed the line where the federal government took over. But I think at the state level, it doesn't seem like they did much.
It increased under your tenure. Do you acknowledge that?
Did the numbers increase? Yes. And I tell you, when you catch people and prosecute them, it shows up at the fraud increase. I would tell you, Congressman, because you're not hearing about fraud doesn't mean it's not
I got 50
happening.
seconds, Governor, and I don't want to get into a fight with you, but let me move quickly to the Lieutenant Governor. Peggy Flanagan's your Lieutenant Governor, is that correct?
That is correct.
Does the Lieutenant Governor go on the ticket with you, or are they elected by themselves on a ballot in the state of Minnesota?
It's on a ticket.
It's on a ticket. Peggy Flanagan essentially works for you.
She has an independent office. She's a constitutional officer. She's on the ticket, but she is independent as a constitutional
You
officer.
could ask for her resignation at any time, is that correct?
Of course you can.
That's typically how it works with lieutenant governors.
Yeah, but she's a constitutional officer. I don't believe that's happened in Minnesota.
Peggy Flanagan is, there are accusations that she was intimidating whistleblowers. There was a meeting on.
So his lieutenant, which is his deputy governor, which would, in the presidential sense, this would be your vice president, right? Which, the number 2 person, let's make it that easy. The number 2 person is on, there's documentation to prove that she was intimidating whistleblowers. So clearly, Governor Walz knew what was going on. The typical blue state bullshit. They didn't want to do anything about it. They just let it go, And now the target is the Somalis, but nobody's talking about these incompetent leaders that made this even possible.
On April 12th of 2024, where she went on stage and publicly denounced whistleblowers in the state of Minnesota, calling them losers in their mother's basements. Is this the type of treatment that your administration allows for whistleblowers in Minnesota?
I'm not familiar with that.
Are you aware of any intimidation of whistleblowers in the state of Minnesota?
It's
There are
not
30 whistleblowers who have given letters to this committee on the record saying that they have been subject to intimidation by your administration because they were trying to stop the fraud in Minnesota.
I encourage them to go to the OLA and the independent sources in Minnesota that are
The
open to do
OLA,
that.
you're the governor.
No, the OLA is the independent.
But sir,
Office of
you're the
Legislative
governor.
Auditor.
Why don't you take responsibility for what's going on in your state?
We do take responsibility. None of those people, I'm telling you, I have no knowledge.
But you
of them
lost
coming in.
billions of dollars of American taxpayer money in the process, Governor Walz.
We prosecuted these people, Congressman. I think Florida has fraud.
I would argue that the prosecutions have largely come from the federal offices
That's
as
not how
opposed to
this
the state
works.
offices.
You know that we refer
What
them
do you
to
mean
them.
that's not how it works? That's
They're
exactly
partners.
how it works.
They're partners. They partner together. Our BCA.
Is the Attorney General allowed to investigate?
Oh, so now they are partners, but then when it comes to immigration enforcement, they are not partners. You see how these things work in certain places. When it comes to things that they care about ideologically, then they don't want the federal government in their business. But then when it comes to investigative things that are concerning, like this one that has blown up publicly, then all of a sudden the feds are partners. Isn't that crazy?